It's not TV, it's HPO.
It's not TV, it's HPO.
Hope, positivity, and optimism.
Hope, positivity, and optimism.
Joseph Jaffe is not famous.
Joseph Jaffe is not famous. No.
Joseph Jaffe. I believe that's a Japanese name. And but I tell you what, he's not famous. He's famouser than he was, or used to was. But fame is fleeting, like a paperweight. It just comes and goes.
When it comes to chicken, I'm your guy.
Blinking.
I'll have what Joseph's has.
Look, somebody's talking about you.
This is what we call the voice of God.
Popping.
Everybody just gets to focus on you.
Grab me.
Probably not the best thing for an introvert.
I'm asking for you.
Well, I like a good chicken sandwich.
Touch me. Hi, David. Comment.
Oh my God.
Like.
You're actually an identical twin.
Push.
Maybe I'll just ask Julie to talk about what it is to be an identical twin.
Pick me up.
No, you didn't.
Shouting.
Surprise! Jeremiah, just hang on a second. I just got a text.
There's an edit for your new opening, Joseph.
I feel really honored to have been here, man.
But by the way, you've done a masterful job. Seriously.
And it was such a joy.
Thanks, Joseph. It's an honor.
Good on you. This was a pleasure.
I mean, you are the prime example of how to pivot in this new environment.
I wish everybody gets an opportunity to interact with Joseph Jaffe.
Who needs Cameo when I've got my own personal Cameo? You know, I was telling myself, I talk to myself, and sometimes I talk back as well. I realized I'd forgotten to do something, and I'm doing it right now. Actually, I'm walking and chewing gum at the same time, and I don't recommend doing that. But I just went live on Instagram while the credits were rolling, if you will. John is sitting in the background, John Wolpert, and he's thinking, what did I get myself into? Because I saw Africa, I saw a George W. Bush impersonator. This is the place where they say you can take the man out of Africa, but you can't take Africa out the man. And as far as Jim Meskimen, previous guest on the show, is concerned, man, does he do a great George W. Bush impersonation. But we're not impersonating anything or anyone at the moment. We are, we're talking toxic positivity, or is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I mean, how can any level of toxicity be a good thing? Success theater, all bets are on, all bets are off. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show as it is the beginning of 2024. I am, some people call it dry January. I'm saying it's cry January. No, I'm joking. I'm just, it's why January. It took me a while. It's why January. Okay, so there you go. I knew I had it in me somewhere. My why statement. As a teacher, facilitator, and coach, I help high aspiring entrepreneurs, owners, and their leadership teams get unstuck, return to growth, and become forever changed. If I say it enough times, maybe I'll believe it. Of course, I believe it. The question is, will you believe it? My new book is called Forever Changed: How a Global Pandemic Changed My Direction, My Purpose, and My Life. And it is out now, available wherever books are sold, which I guess is just on Amazon. But anyway, I've also been coaching now for coming up on 7 or 8 months, coaching EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, helping business owners and leadership teams get what they want from their business. And if you need, and you're looking for a little bit of discipline and accountability, give me a call. I might even call you back. And of course, my baby. How can I forget my baby? My baby is the show. I've been doing it. It has kept me sane. One might even argue it saved my life during a very tough time when people were stuck at home or stuck in general, which is why I talk about getting unstuck and helping people get unstuck by having my fellow authors, thought leaders, influencers, executives, tastemakers, provocateurs on the show, helping them with a bit of exposure and content, but really helping people watching at home. And if you like this or love me, hate me, just feel something towards me, please go ahead and subscribe to the show at bit.ly/subscribe to the show. Well, every morning from Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I do an audio-first, audio-only show in Discord on X Spaces called the Collective Cafe. We manifest on Monday, Thought Leadership Tuesday, Wellness Wednesday, live book reads on Thursday. We might have to start reading John's book coming up, maybe in February. We'll start reading that book. And then No Agenda open mic on Friday. We had a session on Elon Musk recently and his little outburst regarding what I guess a little message, 3 words: go something yourself, to the advertising community. Let's see how well that works out for him. And just the other day, we did an amazing session on psychological safety. And you want high psychological safety. You do not want low psychological safety. I wonder, John, in the green room, how does psychological safety factor into toxic positivity? Or is that just a bingo in terms of buzzwords? I'm not really sure. And if you cannot join us live in discord.gg/Alpha Collective, you can always just subscribe to the pod at bit.ly/collective cafe to go. And that is the preamble. That is the shtick. It is now time for something that hopefully gets stuck or unstuck, if you will. It is the seated soliloquy. And the seated soliloquy is called Nourishing Negativity. Now, I had to go and ask my buddy Chat, we're on first name basis, last name GPT, what is the opposite of toxic positivity? And I think I came up with nourishing, because if positivity can be a bad thing, can negativity be a good thing? Well, I know that actually is the thesis and the premise that John is going to talk about today. But what was my 2 cents? What was my take on it? My uninformed, uninitiated approach to negativity. Can negativity be a good thing? Well, there is constructive criticism, is there not? Does that help? Does that help to be able to lead with negativity, with a hope of being able to be honest, be upfront, just call it like it is? There is tactless people, I get it. There are people that get off on being negative, that are overly critical. That's the bad kind of negativity. But can negativity be nourishing? Can you actually be able to nurture? How about nurturing negativity, where you just say, bring it on, give it to me, tell it to me straight. Give me the ultimate gift, the privilege of being able to do something about it, versus sweep it under the rug, pretend it doesn't exist, or turn a blind eye. As the saying goes, there are none as blind as those who will not see. But someone who does see, sees very well, is John Wolpert. John Wolpert is a speaker, writer, and thinker in technology and business innovation. As a CEO, product executive, and advisor, he's been at the vanguard of technological breakthroughs, from the early days of the web to the rise of artificial intelligence. John is known for founding Flywheel, a pioneer in the ride-hailing industry. His work at IBM made him a key figure in the evolution of open source software, blockchain, and AI. He's co-founded global R&D consortia and industry standards bodies, and his thought leadership on open innovation has been showcased in the Harvard Business Review. John has led countless new venture workshops and spoken before the European Union and the Australian Parliament in his mission to help organizations work together to solve hard problems. And all of that is, just before 12 noon. Imagine what he does in the afternoon. John Wolpert, welcome to the show.
Hey, Joseph, how are you? I guess you read the entire thing from my publicist. That's good.
What do you mean?
Thanks
What do you
for
mean
that.
read? What do you mean read? Did it look
Yeah.
like I was reading anything?
No,
I
no,
downloaded
you're good. You're very good.
downloaded a free teleprompter software. You know, it's actually amazing, by the way, with all this AI software out there, that you have the ability to use a correction tool that uses AI to make sure that the eyes are on the prize. So I should say eyes are on the prize. So even if I was actually looking down, reading right now, or maybe doing something like that, it would look like I was looking straight at the camera.
Have
and
you
then
used that? Have you used that software? I've tried it, and it was kind of
I
creepy.
have not, because I don't read. I just, it's all from, I have photographic memory, not really. So, the other one is I was just playing with, and I forget what it's called. Is it maybe Heijen, that allows you to translate and lip syncs as well? Have you seen that one?
No.
Well, in fact, wait, because I'm going to have a highlight from today. Pick a language, and I will have you speaking that language fluently in the highlight, and then I will post that on the social medias. What's your language du jour, my friend?
Oh, let's do Chinese.
Chinese it is. Now, I had Ann Betts on the show last week. We were pre-recording, and she's one of the foremost neuroscience thinkers and practitioners and coaches. And we were talking about narcissism and imposter syndrome. And leadership, and we may or may not have discussed former presidents. And it was the most fascinating conversation. But for some reason, when I put it through Heijen, it swapped our voices. So she sounded like me, fluent Spanish, and I sounded like her. So,
Did they let you choose Mandarin or Cantonese, or just one?
Well, we were doing Spanish, but let me ask you a question. Is it, people talk about artificial intelligence. Is it in fact artificial? I mean, in the sense that can, I'll ask it a different way. Is there any scenario where the humans win? Different question.
Yeah. I think that there is a great scenario where the humans win, where AI starts to help us not murder each other, not do terrible government, not do. At some point, we're going to, my kids or their kids are going to say, we let humans drive? That's a terrible idea. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm being silly and controversial probably, but maybe one day, hopefully long after I'm dead, there's somebody saying, we let people govern themselves. That's a terrible idea.
How's that working out for us at the moment?
Sometimes we're not very good at it, so who knows?
I like that. And, it's a very interesting two-part, right? Because the first is, as we used to say, was this idea of we were able. I'm sorry. This is what happens with a live show. So there we go. That was why I decided to do the show live.
I thought you were going to do that Sabine thing where you pick up the phone and it's Einstein.
Yeah, exactly. Hello. But the first one, which I always thought was very interesting, was this idea of we said that we would never let our kids get into a car with a stranger, right? And then that, of course, became the story of UberX. But I love what you've just done right now, which is to actually say, you know what? Wait, there was a time when we actually drove. Ironically, that was my wife coming in saying, I need your car keys. But as opposed to being driven herself. But what are some of the other scenarios, perhaps, that that you can already see? Because in your position, and from your vantage point, what are some of these other like tectonic shifts where humans may cede their control or their usage in favor of a more automated or intelligent, artificial, otherwise approach?
Well, your question made me think about something that might be salient to the point, which is we talk a lot, and I think the blockchain community talked about this a lot. This idea of owning your stuff, right? And NFTs don't actually do that, so that was a bust. But the problem, of course, in owning things or having control, you have to be able to say that you can assert control over the use of your of whatever you're claiming you have ownership over, right? That's one fundamental part of the legal notion of ownership. And I'm no lawyer, but I know a few, and that's my understanding. So if you, in digits, if you own a Rembrandt and you say, okay, well, you can put that in the Louvre. Okay, cool. Nobody is fooled by your picture that you took of the painting hanging in the Louvre, right? You don't own that just because you took a picture of it. The atoms are the atoms, right? In the digital world, if I have access to your file, I have a perfect copy of your file, right? And so that makes it really hard to assert control and ownership, because the only thing you can truly control is something that you've never given to anybody. Otherwise, they can go and splatter it all over the internet like feral cat pee, right? So that's a problem. In AI, though, there might be a way through, which is to say, I have all of these utterances. I've written a book. You've written a book. What if we were to be able to say, okay, I'm going to put that book into something like a new kind of AI AP Newswire or Elsevier or one of these content bodies for the rest of us. And it encoded all of our stuff into vectors, right, into math. But every vector included an extra coefficient, an extra set of numbers that corresponded to our private or our identity, or our key, right? Our signature, our digital signature. So every single one of your vectors that trains AI can be traced back to you. And then through policy and norms that are going to rise up over time, you get maybe some kind of version of universal basic income. You say, hey, I contributed to the song of the world, and AIs are making value and generating potentially revenue and other things off of that. And I get a little tiny piece of that when my vectors are used in that process. And there's some work to be done on that, but it's really a doable thing. Do you see my point?
I do, and I'm trying to think. Like I know that we're playing a drinking game. That every time someone says the word blockchain, someone has to drink. But doesn't that sound, from a governance standpoint, and doesn't that sound like a role that the blockchain would perform, being able to? So how do
you don't need blockchain for that.
So how do you determine real ownership in terms of something that gets passed on and passed on and passed on? And making sure that that original creator gets paid and gets paid fairly. And by the way, I just want to say that please look out for John's new book, The Story of Web3 and What Went Wrong, called Feral Cat Pee. Feral Cat Pee. There it is. Well, you heard it first.
It's true that Wiley, the publisher, called some time ago and said, hey, do you want to do the Blockchain is Dead book or something like that?
Called Feral.
And I said, no, I don't. That's just way too much negativity. And I said, but I have this other book and 2 or 3 of them in mind. And they're like, okay, we'll pitch that. And they liked the 2-but rule. And they moved that right into the mass market release, not just a business book release, which I'm very grateful for. They've been really great. Wiley's been a fantastic publisher.
I published 4 books with Wiley. Was it 4 or 5? 4 books with Wiley. My first 4 with Wiley. So Wiley got it all started with Life After the 30-Second Spot. So, we were fellow Wiley authors.
I think my favorite title of yours is Built to Suck. It reminds me, we should all have a section in the airport bookseller called Rude Book Titles. There's Bob Sutton has the no asshole rule, and Of course, Manson's got the subtle art of not giving an F. The two-butt rule.
I think what you meant to say was the subtle art of not giving a. So you need to be able to self-censor yourself. This is not a family show. By the way, just live update. What actually happened earlier is my wife walked into the studio here, of course, the global studio, and asked for my car keys, which I gave her. And I sent her a text saying, "What the hell just happened?" And she told me there was a mouse in her car. She said she almost ran off the road, and I guess came back and swapped cars. So there's a mouse in the house, and it's not this one. So anyway, but we digress.
No, I'll say that we had a similar problem. There's a new thing you can get. It's a sound emitter. So that mice don't like, apparently, and we put those in the garage, and that seems to have eradicated the mouse infestation problem.
All right.
Especially with small kids. I mean, they just love getting in and eating the snacks that the kids have put all over the floors.
I wonder if there's a certain pitch or sound emission to get rid of grifters, but that's another
that would kill
story.
Blockchain.
Yeah, that's another story for another day. Well, listen, I want to get to nourishing and nurturing negativity. I want to get to this idea of toxic positivity. I'm absolutely fascinated by the subject, and I wonder where we should start. I mean, why don't we start with the premise of the book, and then we'll kind of work around, because I want to spend a little bit of time on toxic positivity. But why don't you set it up, and then I will come back and ask you a few questions.
Sure. So the two-butt rule came out of, I used to work for a pretty fancy innovation consulting firm back in the early 2000s. And there was a colleague there that would always say, "But the but." This is silly. Just whenever I would say, "But that won't work," she would say, "But it would if." Always but the but. That was it. That was the whole thing. And you know how sometimes something gets into you, and it's the most trivial little thing, and it changes your life. And this did. It really did. I think that some of the best work I've ever done came out of not only two-butting, but four-butting and six-butting and eight-butting. But failure is only an option, as I mentioned in the book, on an odd-numbered but, right? But it would work, but that won't work, but what if? But that also won't work, but it would if. Do that 5 times, and in my experience in research, you'll have a patent at least. It's like, but that won't work. But what if we did this? But that also doesn't work, but it would. And the reason this isn't just a 2-page book with lots more pages, in fact, I got a really nice note from Jonathan Todd Ross is just huge in audiobooks, and they got him to do the book narration, which comes out in February. And he sent me a very nice note saying that, it wasn't, he expected it to be some, silly book and be repetitive. And he said it wasn't, and it was a joy to read. And I was very happy to hear that. And I think the reason there's a lot of depth to this very simple 2-line aphorism is that it's not sufficient to just simply say, but it would work. You have to focus on intentions. And this was what I learned when I was doing that. I did a research lab consortium in Australia, and we were trying to find connections between different patents. And it turned out patents didn't matter. Inventions didn't matter. What mattered was intentions. What do I intend to do? Here's my pencil, right? Here, I got a pencil, shiny pen. This is a pen. I've got, I can patent it. I can tell you about how it works. I can show it to you. I can share it freely. But if my intention is to shove it in your eye, now it's a disruptive innovation. I can't tell you about that before I do it, or you're not going to sit there while I try. And that's the power of intentions. If inventions are the nouns of innovation, intentions are the verbs, and they're terribly hard to share. So I've spent a lot of my career focused on that. We need to share but can't share problem. In fact, most of my consulting work is on that, using anything from zero-knowledge cryptography or Mongo's new queryable encryption technique, or just organizational structures to allow us to share and coordinate better across legally separate entities without going full open kimono on what we can't share. So that it's a really interesting problem, unsolvable problem.
So the essence of two buts, right, is two negatives become a positive. It's when somebody, I have my I call it my nails on a chalkboard. 3 words are my concern is. And I know as a founder, as an entrepreneur, as a creator, as a creative, I would come up with my harebrained ideas, my vision, my passion, and take it to someone. And the first 3 words out of their godforsaken mouth would be, my concern is.
IBM has an even better one. Yes. IBMers will tell you, have a variant of that called, I'm confused.
Oh, Lord.
I'm confused about that, which is sort of passive aggressive speak for, I don't like that. Yeah, I'm familiar.
So you fight. So the idea is when somebody tells you a reason why they don't like it or why it's not going to work, you counter the counter, so to speak, what is a reason why it might work, or how do we make it work? How do you turn the negative thinking into a positive solution?
Right. So the first thing is, if you're going to present your butt to somebody, make sure you bring 2, right? So it's not that I can say, but it would work, but it's better if you, as the objector, can say, look, I have spent enough time understanding the needs and the intention, the motivations behind the intention that you've expressed, right? You're like, I've got a plan to overcome a problem, capture an opportunity, whatever it is. And I say, but I don't like that, but we can't afford that because blah, blah, blah. But we could afford it if we eliminated your salary. That would solve it. Right. So that's the nature of the 2 but rule is to yes, if we can get to a culture. In fact, I think Gen Xers, we had this culture put upon us of negative one buttism, right? The boss would come in and destroy your hopes and dreams with a well-placed but, but I don't like it, right? We didn't like that. So we created for the next generation, unfortunately, a culture of no buttism, the positivity police, the no but positivity police, right? So we have this, I think everybody today is afraid of their butt. We're all running from our own butts, which is quite difficult to do. It takes commitment to run from your own butt. And it's terrifying as a boss, as an employee or a boss, or, if you're a leader in a company or an organization, it's terrifying to have to say to an employee, but this probably won't work. You might not have a good experience with their reaction to that because it's negative. They don't like it. So what we need is a culture of 2-buttism, where that person who hears your, but I don't like that, or but that won't work, or but we have a problem there, they know to expect that you're coming with a second but.
Oh, I see. I see. So, right? Okay. So I'm going to work backwards. I get it now. The 2 buts are within the same person, within the same frame.
Ideally,
so
right? Yeah.
So if I'm going to butt you, I need to also come with that second but. The
That's
outs,
right.
the opportunity, the what if I'm wrong. There's a little bit of humility in there too. There's a relativism, a dynamism, as opposed to an absolute, I hate it, this sucks, my concern is, I'm confused, all of the above.
I'm confused, but I wouldn't be if, right? Yeah, there you go. So,
but what if, and I love even as a coach now, as a business coach, one of the reasons that I was taught now, and it resonates with me, is the reason why we don't come up with the answer when we're sitting down with a bunch of entrepreneurs or business owners or their leadership teams is twofold. Number one is we believe that 90% of the time the answer is in the room. And second of all, what if we're wrong? who are we to be able to come up with the answers or feel we have the answer when we don't even work for the damn company? And so you have that. And then the other thing I just wanted to lob your way is going back to the concept of psychological safety. I get it now. I get the fact that we're so afraid to hurt or offend or, or criticize, that what we do is the worst possible thing, which is we sweep it under the rug ourselves, or we just bury it, we suppress it. And guess what?
Yeah,
Great
we
work
smile and
never gets
smile.
done.
Yeah, Bob Sutton has a new book coming out on Friday or Thursday or Friday called The Friction Project. And he works a lot with Amy Edmondson, who is very much, one of the OGs or maybe the OG on psychological safety. Adam Grant, folks like this, really great writers. I think often, though, some people can misunderstand this idea of psychological safety. And I talk about this in the 2-But Rule a little bit, that we have this fearless organization desire. We want to have a fearless organization, fearless. I don't know. I think maybe we need a brave organization with people who are brave enough to present their ideas and present their butts. And we can be a little braver, and we can play with our butts a little bit more. We can have more fun if we know that we're going to always have that second butt in hand. By the way, it's important to get the spelling of butt right when handling them at work. But
listen, and we're not talking about some of our colleagues in the past that said, I'm confused, but I'm talking about my past as well. But fear less, brave more. And I think what you're also saying is maybe, well, first of all, you need a bit of fear. Fear is important if it can be harnessed. It's what keeps us alive. It's what keeps us. I feel like that little bit of edge, not fear of people, but that fear of failure, that there's got to be something healthy to that. No?
Yes. What we don't want, right? I think what psychological safety is against, and what none of us want, is we don't want to go back to a world of fist pounding, angry, red-faced bosses who terrorize us.
What's it? Chainsaw Dunlap,
Chainsaw Dunlap.
Yeah, L. Dunlap. He was known as Chainsaw Dunlap. He was a mother of note in terms of the way that he managed. He became synonymous. L. Dunlap, he was known as Chainsaw because he literally would come in and just wreak havoc. But yeah, we certainly don't want to go back to that.
No, but I remember going into it wasn't the CEO at the time, but Arvind Krishna's office, and being really scared at IBM Research. Not because I was scared of him. He was a very kind, reasonable man. I was scared because I didn't want to let him down. Right. Murray Week, another boss of mine from years ago. I just was terrified that I would screw up or do something that would let her down, that would disappoint her. And I think that made me think harder about what I was coming up with. And, but I was never scared of them in that old school sort of angry way. They're just nice people, but they are so competent and they are so supportive. You don't want to be, to let them down. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. So little fear is the right kind of fear is important.
Fearless, right? Not fearless as in the absence of fear, but less fear, more bravery, more courage.
And bravery is being afraid and doing the right thing anyway, right? And so I think getting back to the 2-but notion is that we have this culture of where we just sort of smile away, and you have that butt head, right? The negative nabob, or the it was Adlai Stevenson, I think, that said the nattering nabobs of negativity. I might have misapplied that quote, but the negative people, the one company called them the angel of death, right? The people that you just have to get off the team real fast. I think that's wrong. I think that saying, oh, that's a good idea, and then just letting it disappear and not saying anything and not doing anything about it, that's a momentum killer in a much more insidious way than the person that says, but hey, there's a problem with that. I don't like that. At least that person's being overt, but nobody likes that person. That person's a pariah. They're kept around by the boss until they overstep, and then they're gone. There's got to be buttheads have to be like a huge component of the therapy space. Right? It's just a hard thing to be in life, is the person who's seen as the negative person. So in a way, the book is to say, hey, we should rehabilitate that person if they can remember. And in fact, I give this advice. If you're a one-butter and if you have a problem with cutting in too early on people's conversations because you have this thought, but that won't work. Formulate the two but before you give them the one but. It'll slow you down, but it will also not allow you to forget what you wanted to say, which I don't know about you, but that's where in the times when I cut in too early on a conversation, it's usually because I'm afraid I'm going to forget what I wanted to say. But if I work on formulating the two but, there's no way I'm going to forget it. It's a very powerful way of turning a one butter, that pariah, into the hero. I mean, there's a story, Apollo 13. I tell it a lot. Imagine, if the engineers when somebody said, and this is true, hey, let's burn the main engine to get the Apollo 13 crew back to Earth faster after the oxygen tank exploded in the command module. And everything went haywire. The idea was turn it around, get them back to Earth as fast as possible, burn the main engine. And the engineers went, but don't do that because it may explode. We don't know if it's been damaged. And imagine if the reaction to that had been, don't be so negative. That's not the right answer, right? And in fact, it turns out it would have killed them all. But they could slingshot around the moon and get them home safely. And they had 101 more buts to deal with, right? But then they started running, the CO2 was running high, but they could figure that out. But the power-up sequence was going to go horribly wrong, but they figured that out. They never, failure is not an option is in fact the line from the movie Apollo 13, which Gene Kranz actually never said. What he said was, let's solve the problem, people, and let's not make it worse by guessing. Solve the problem, don't make it worse. Which is very different than the move fast and break things culture that we have today. I mean, there's all sorts of gig economy startups destroying whole service sectors, solving no problems, adding a dozen more on top. Social networks promising community and connection, and then delivering devastating blows to social norms. And things like blockchain promising financial inclusion and generating this huge, terrifyingly centralized crypto hegemony that is not healthy. So all of these are the products of a no buts allowed culture where we just didn't think it through. But Apollo 13, that team, they had no time. And yet they still came up with ideas, saw problems with those ideas, solved those problems, which generated new problems, which they solved until they got them home safely. So you can maintain momentum a lot better if you apply the two but rule. And failure is only an option if you end on an odd numbered but. But that doesn't work. Boom, done.
I mean, it's so succinct the way that you brought it home there with this idea of momentum, the journey, keeping going, never stopping. What do they say? Failure is only failure when it is an end unto itself as opposed to a means to an end. And what I see from this philosophy, from this methodology, it's a lot more powerful even than the 5 whys, because the 5 whys stops at 5. Yours is just, keep on going. Just don't end on an odd. But the idea is just keep on exploring and keep on extrapolating, keep on problem solving, also troubleshooting, And no sacred cows, in the sense which is, if everyone is on the same team, committed to the same outcome, then you almost create this. It's interesting, these safety guardrails without it being safe, if that makes sense, right? It's guardrails as opposed to a safety net, so you at least have some kind of frame without the training wheels. I know I just mixed about 12 metaphors. But,
I'll give you another one.
I do.
In fact, I'll kind of punchline the story I was telling you earlier about the pencil. If you don't focus on the needs and honor the needs of the person proposing an intention, and also honor your own needs that are motivating your objection, and then try to find a way to square those, then you wind up with, a poor application of the 2-but rule, right? You could say, well, but you want to stick this pencil in my eye, but I don't want you to, or you'd say, but that would be hard because I'll stop you, but you could pull it off if you got me from behind, right? That would be a terrible use of the 2-but rule. But you could say, but I don't want you to stick that pencil in my eye, but I can see why you want to. And A, I'm sorry. And B, you can punch me in the arm if it makes you feel better, right? That's a better way of applying it, right? Focusing on the needs. And I think that's really the foundation of innovation. The best way of thinking about innovation is to be able to square these things you have a teeter-totter, right? And you say, well, I'm only up if you're down. You're only up if I'm down. Or we're compromising, right? Or we compromise, right? We're both on, sitting there inert without going up and down, right? That's compromise. Innovation, momentum thinking and 2-but rule isn't about compromise. It's about finding the innovative solution to changing the context and meeting everybody's needs. So, hey, you can take that teeter-totter, make it an airplane wing, and go up together, right? So that would be a good example of using the 2-but rule for innovation.
Lateral thinking as well, but one that also doesn't have to create, again, the I guess I'm looking. That's why I wrote "Built to Suck," by the way, because there are all these. They're, as you say, momentum killers in the corporate world. I think we're saying the same thing, right? To your point, we've got all these phrases, this total, bull bingo. The censor today is on the money, let me tell you, when they aren't chasing mice out their cars. But what this does is it stifles, it limits, it contains, it suppresses energy and passion and purity. And that's what I see happening here, which is, well, just because I came up with an idea doesn't mean that you now need to come up with one. Just because I added to the teeter-totter doesn't mean that you now have to, it's not, it can be imbalanced, it can be disproportionate, and yet we can both win.
Yeah, right. How many times do we see these terrible ideas, right? Beautiful, dumb ideas start out, really success is how much momentum can you achieve in turning bad ideas into good ones, right? The mythology that there are these great ideas that resist any further input and just, spring out of the head of Zeus and are perfect is silly, right? It's just not the way the world really works, right? In fact, and that's the problem, as you say, in Built to Suck, with enterprise or with large groups of mostly humans, we wind up with this percolation of bad ideas that become willfully ignorant ideas because they resist new input, because it's scary, and you can really find yourself out on the outside looking in if you point out the problems in somebody else's idea. And so what happens? They all percolate up until they make a giant mess. And they go from being a wonderful, dumb idea to being a stupid idea. Or
to being,
that's the technical term for willfully ignorant. Yeah.
Feral cat pee. I love that. Beautiful, dumb ideas, because people didn't have the kahunas, the bravery, the courage, the spine to step in because of the fear, because of everything you said. I have to tell you, I went out and I'm not reading right now. Oh, damn. But these are top 10 toxic toxic positivity statements. So I'm going to read a few of them to you and then have you comment. Everything happens for a reason. Just be positive. Oh, I love this one. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You are who you are because of what happened to you. Hurt people, hurt people. Anything is possible. These are classic examples of toxic positivity. Why are they so bad?
I don't know. I think that one, hurt people is apt. I think that one I'll go with, because I think that, yeah, because I'm, I believe in the Jedi Order, and Yoda did say, fear leads to suffering. Suffering leads to hate. Anger. Anger leads to hate.
You look a little bit like George Lucas, by the way. I'm just saying.
I hope. What era of George Lucas are you going for there?
Bank balance. Only bank balance. But yeah, but by the way, the comment, the rebuttal to hurt people was actually no shit. It's like, but I mean, but the response is actually, what to say instead. So a lot of these are, so it's, I'm sorry they hurt you. I didn't give you what you needed, or they lack the ability to treat you how you deserve to be treated. So this is what I picked up along the way, John. And I always try and find a quote for my guests. This is the quote that I found for this particular episode, which is, we cannot selectively numb emotions. When we numb the painful emotions, we also numb the positive emotions. And this was Brené Brown. It seems to me, in trying to deconstruct and understand toxic positivity, that what we do with toxic positivity is that we either don't say anything, which is not what toxic positivity is, or what we do is we actually discount, minimize the feelings of the people by almost, making them feel insignificant. What you can't feel what you're feeling right now. That's ridiculous. You're going to be stronger for it. Toughen up, So it's all about that positive outcome, but without acknowledging the negative present. And I think that, to me, is what I took away. I don't know if you see it differently.
Yeah, I think that the problem for people that are trying to make innovative things or solve really hard problems, and in the book, there's just tons of examples of this. Tope Awatona from Calendly, there's a good story about him. There's a pretty long and interesting story, I think, about various ways of doing cleaning up and handling the ocean plastic problem. And then there's a simple one just about like the broken ceiling lamp, right? So, or changing careers. There's all these different stories. And in all of them, I think where we lose momentum, it's not even about, I talk a lot about teamwork in the book, but sometimes it's just in your own mind, that negative force that you run, and what makes it a problem isn't the negative force, it's the running from the negative force, right? Because we feel bad about it. I've got this idea, I want to do it, but that's a roadblock. And then you run away from that thought and you don't give it a hug. You don't look at it and go, oh, hey, bad feeling. Hey, buddy, I'm your friend. I tell this to my kids, right? They're young, and they when they have bad feelings, I'm like, oh, cool. Got a bad feeling? Give it a hug, right? Say, hey, I'm your buddy. I'm here for you. I think it's the same way with problem solving or with facing up to those real problems. And again, we were talking earlier about blockchain. There are real laws of physics problems with blockchain, and running away from them and saying, oh, well, I really want to make billions of dollars in crypto, but there's this problem. And then we just ignore it. We don't look straight at it because we're afraid. There are people in that space. Vitalik Buterin is a very, very sharp guy, and he really is. One of the things that really always brings me back to some hopefulness about that space is somebody like him who is very honest. I mean, if you watch his stuff, he'll tell you, yeah, not only do we not know how to fix this, we don't know that there is a fix. And this is a guy that's sitting on the top of that whole heap. Normally you wouldn't get that kind of honesty from a person. I really like that about him. He's a very nice guy.
I want to I'm going to ask you an interesting question right now. I don't know if we can if we can role play per se. And I don't even know if this will go anywhere, but let's see. How would you fix the current challenge of the upcoming election, where there are two 80-year-olds? So we'll kind of try and stay neutral here, right? Two 80-year-olds, and it appears that no one wants either of them really to be running, and you exist within a two-party system where the system just doesn't seem to support a third party. How do you fix this by being able to use the two-but rule?
Oh, that's a great one. I'll say first, Bill Maher has a great line about Joe Biden, and I'm frankly mystified. I'm pretty impressed with the soft landing that seems to be forming. Pretty good decisions. I always think that, politics aside, I just think that I don't know why he's not getting credit for some of the things that are happening right now. And we dwell on, obviously inflation was bad, but the unforced error on inflation came from the previous administration. You did not cut taxes massively in an upcycle. It's just no economist thinks that's a good idea. So that, I think there's plenty of blame to go around for any of the economic pain people are feeling. But in general, he didn't stick the landing on Afghanistan, but I thought he did pretty well. But I like what Bill Maher said. He said, I think Joe can run the country. I just don't think he can run for president. I think that is the problem, because it's exhausting and he is getting older. And
just run in general.
But I remember like Jerry Brown in California, right? And first time he was the governor of California, it was called Governor Moonbeam, and he was pretty nutty and people weren't happy with him. But then, as an old guy, came back, and he's widely considered to be one of the best governors that California ever had. Took a huge deficit and turned it into $1 trillion or some huge number surplus. He did very well. He was very practical. He was middle. He embraced both sides. He was a good governor by a lot of people's accounts, and he had that maturity and wisdom. So I don't know that the age thing is an issue. I don't know why people are
so maybe
less
pick
enthusiastic about all this. But
so if we're picking a side, for example, then the two-but approach would be it's acknowledging, right, the elephant in the room. He's either old or perceived to be too old. How would the two-but rule help you?
So there's a one piece of the two-but rule we need to cover before that we can do that, and it's called the silly but or the fuzzy but. So you can always say it. And I have a chapter in the book called Elon Musk's Fuzzy Butt, which I hope he finds amusing. But the notion here is that you can't always come up with a good second but the whole point is momentum, right? So the out you can take, and this actually happened to me.
You just did, by the way, come up with a second but there.
Yeah. So Elon Musk was saying we can't find an affordable way to get to Mars. But we could if we had a magic wand that turned atoms into rockets. And that actually led to a lot of the breakthrough thinking that they came up with, 3D manufacturing with Raptor engines and other things. So momentum, right? So you can come up with a silly or a fuzzy but. And I was in a lab once, and a new hire said, but what if we did this? And an engineer went, but that won't work. And I said, but it would. And the guy looked at the ceiling and went, it would work if gravity was different. And another engineer jumped out of their seat and went, wait a minute. And that led to a pretty great project that got the attention of the top brass. And it was, a couple of patents. And so, it's about maintaining momentum, not necessarily solving the approximate problem. So in this case, but Joe would be okay if we gave him youth drugs, right? So where does that take us, right? Is there something there? And people are actually working on that. So who knows? Maybe he's already taking them. I don't know. But he would be better off if he spent more time on camera, if he can, showing us that he's vigorous and doing okay in that way. But he's kind of busy running the country, and maybe he's making an error there in not giving us enough of his time. Also, even when he was a young guy, he wasn't really good. Wasn't really good with the speaking. He's not quick, and he doesn't have those snappy comebacks, so he doesn't seem like he's on camera. He doesn't have that sort of aptitude. So you kind of got to give that to him. We gave it to George Bush. I don't know why we would not give it to him. So George Bush was not a great speaker.
I once it made a huge impact on me. I was in San Francisco at an accelerator and working with our client at the time, which was Kraft Foods, and we did an exercise which was basically to come up with the worst possible idea in the whole world.
Yes, it's a great game.
And then we had to turn that worst idea in the world into the best idea
without changing the thing that made it bad, right? Like inflatable dartboard. In fact, it was UIUC and Lancaster University that came up with this approach called the bad idea game. And inflatable dartboard, you have to solve the problem without making it not inflatable, right? And the answer is Velcro balls, and that's actually a product. So yeah.
Okay. So I'll give you my example, right? My example was to come up with an idea where basically representatives of Kraft from their kitchen and advisors would be on hand to talk to every single shopper to suggest recipes, ingredients, help them, determine what to cook that night for dinner, allergies, etc., etc. And of course, the worst possible idea in the world, because how on earth are you going to staff, people in every single supermarket or retail outlet around the country? And the fix was FaceTime. Why did it have to be in person? Why not be able to use, in this case, virtual reality, augmented reality, or just FaceTime to be able to be in contact with someone in a call center that now would literally almost be like a personal shopper and help you determine what to cook for dinner tonight or what ingredient to buy.
Right. That's a great idea. Now, then you want to do it again, right? And this is where I think we get lazy and we go, okay, what's the new problem with that? Right. Life is a chain of buts, not just, and rarely just a single chain. So, what doesn't work about that, but would work, right? And so, but people, did you find that there were issues with that solution?
I'm sure that they responded by going, "I'm confused." So another story for another day. All right, I want to. Speaking about artificial intelligence, I want to go to a little GPT that you created. So there we go.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, no, this is pretty cool. Tell me. In fact, let's do this. This is the 2-but rule GPT. So tell us. Let's play around. Tell us what we're looking at.
Oh, by the way, it's if you don't have that link, you can find it on my website, jwolpert.com.
You mean people aren't going to just copy that one manually?
Well, if one loses track of it, but
I
think the earth-shattering thing. Sorry,
can I just tell you? Speaking of going to be able to copy down that ridiculously long URL, except for the fact, guess what we have now on our iPhones? We have a beautiful little text recognition, overlay that allows us to do that. So there's an example in a nutshell. But yes,
but Bitly, right? You can do it that way too. But I'm sure that's just something that they haven't come up with yet. I mean, it's easy enough to shorten those URLs. But I think the earth-shattering thing here for me, because I was working with Copilot on building a 2B GPT, and I still am, that will help you. Yeah, it'll ask you what your intentions are, and then it'll start breaking them down. But that won't work. But that also won't work. But that won't work. And then, but it always has to bring a second but. And then you can add more butts, and you have a big giant butt graph, and that'll be fun. That was my idea. And I was working on that, and then this came out, And it took me about a little under an hour to train it on the book and everything else, and tune it up. And people started using it and coming back at me with, "Oh my God, this is like uncannily good. And I didn't even think of this." And it was, so I've been getting weirdly like huge feedback on this thing. And I called the publisher, I called Wiley, and I said, I told him, I think every nonfiction book, certainly ones that deal in business methods and technology, this will be like a thing that you do almost immediately, is train whatever the evolution of this is on your book. Every book's going to have, every nonfiction book, I think, will have its own GPT. Just makes sense, right? It gives people an experience of your book, in addition to, you got to read it too. But
all right, so what can I ask it? Can I ask it, for example, and say, talk about a problem I'm having, or a challenge I'm facing, or what's the best way to message the but rule GPT?
State what you intend to do. What do you intend to do? Let's make one up. I intend to.
I know what I intend to do.
I intend to clean up ocean plastic.
I intend to build. And wait, I intend to get my show. Let's see. Joseph Jaffe is not famous on CNBC.
Great. Perfect.
It's my intention.
Let's see how it goes. This is live television.
That's an ambitious and exciting intention. Let's start exploring this. But that won't work.
GPT's a little bit of a suck up, isn't it? I mean,
but that won't work because getting a show onto a major network like CNBC often requires significant industry connections. I know, right? And a track record of high viewership numbers, which might be challenging if your show is relatively new or niche. But it could work if you strategically increase your show's visibility and credibility.
Now, the funny thing here is sometimes, and if you did that again, it's not deterministic, right? So sometimes I get like 3 or 4 buts on that, and sometimes just one, and I don't quite know why that is yet. But the bottom, now you can dig in. You can just type 1 or 2, or any of those things at the bottom.
So it's actually asking me for a little bit more information. Like, why do you want to get on it? Well, I can say,
because it's trained on trying to find your motives, right? What are your needs and intentions? Yeah.
So I'm going to do it. My motive is to help as many people as possible. I still can't fathom how there isn't a single business, let's spell that correctly, business talk show on or offline.
Oh, that's a little bit interesting.
Wow, this is pretty cool. But that might not work because CNBC may prefer content that aligns strictly with their current programming style and audience demographics. Your show might not fit their typical profile. Counter to one but it could work if you tailor the shows. Okay.
When that's really interesting. It reminds me of, I got in that Harvard Business Review issue because I was talking about something that was a counterpoint to the 6 other famous people that were in that issue, and they needed a counterpoint. So that's a great point, is, can you find the counterpoint and tune what you're saying to the programming person's, agenda.
Hey, listen, cool. I've got my work cut out for me. I love it. And I think the point that you made certainly is hitting home, which is we're going to have a little chat afterwards, because my new book, Forever Changed, how a global pandemic changed my direction, my purpose, and my life, with a 3-part formula, which is Amor, Veritas, and Vigor, which is love what you do, be true to yourself, and stay the course. And the essence of the book is it shouldn't have to take a global pandemic for you to become changed and transform and move towards happiness and fulfillment, as opposed to being miserable. But it helps, right? Global pandemic does help in that situation, but it shouldn't have to. What if there was a formula? Well, there is. And so there is a little bit of a litmus test and a rubric to follow, but also there's a lot of fear associated, because I got my work cut out for me. And I love, John, I just want to emphasize this point again. Every book should have an experience. You should be able to use and feel that book. And what a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, I can't wait. I'll play with if you do a GPT on your book. I want the GPT on Built to Suck too. That would be pretty awesome.
Well, I think we might have to do a little bit of a collaboration. I feel, by the way, I'm glad I wasn't the butt of your joke today. And there were so many little cliches, whether you call them dad jokes. I love the one, rehab the one butter. But it seems like your idea is like a hot knife through butter. And I don't mean a one butter, but just butter in general. So as I said, I'll be here all week, folks. Bill Maher said, I don't know this for a fact. I just know it's true. Please go out and buy the 2-but rule. Turn negative thinking into positive solutions. Check out the new GPT, which of course you can link to through John's website. We didn't even get to camaraderie, but I will just say, if you want to follow John on the X when he's not commenting on Elon Musk's fuzzy butt, how about that? Go to J Wolpert at J Wolpert. Do the same thing on Instagram, and also connect with him on LinkedIn. I will tell you one person who does not suffer from the 1-but rule, just because he will kick you in the butt, and that is Chuck Norris.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And we will be back soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.